Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I'm so glad, so happy to be in Czech Republic. This is my first time in this country. Thank you so much for making me feel welcome here. This presentation is going to be at the pace of the change of the world we live in. So I apologize to our human translators because they will be a bit tired after those 30 minutes. Thank you so much for your hard work. Let's talk about what's happening in this world with the artificial intelligence, with the changes that we're seeing. I've been working in this field for almost 25 years now, but the last 10, 15 years have been absolutely amazing. I remember spending time reading messages on the platform Reddit and really seeing how people change their behaviors. This is a message from 10 years ago. This is 10 years ago. A user that I call Leo Tifish wrote, "From around 6 years ago up until now, I have done nothing at work." Not joking. 40 hours each week. I go to work, play the game League of Legends. In my office, I browse Reddit, which is a social media platform, and I do whatever I feel like. In the past 6 years, I have maybe done 50 hours of real work, so basically nothing. When I read this message, I was hooked. I wanted to understand how people like this person create a work environment. How do they thrive in it? And so the last 10 years of my research have been all about the change in the work. There was a twist in this story, namely when Leo Tifish posted that message. This was under the title, "I just got fired. Yesterday my boss fired me." I wanted to understand this as well because this was a paradox, a dilemma that a lot of us have. When people use technology, it might be AI or something else, are they cheating or is it good for the organization? Right? I want you to think about this question. You know, is it good to automate your work or is it not? I will not give you a lot of answers. I will give you a lot of questions in this session. The world is getting weirder. Okay, it's not getting more easy to understand. It's getting stranger and stranger. I remember a few years ago when I saw some newspaper articles about artificial intelligence. By the way, I prefer to call AI alien intelligence because it's so different from human intelligence. I remember seeing some newspaper articles, and this one was particularly interesting. That was 5 years ago or so. AI camera mistakes referee's bald head for a ball and follows it through the match, right? Imagine watching a game of football, but instead of seeing where the ball is, you would see the bald head of a referee for the entire 90 minutes. AI tends to be very stupid, all right? It doesn't tell or cannot tell a ball from a bald head. Right? It's a bit like digital minions or Minions. You know Minions, the movie? Those yellow creatures in the funny movie. You ask them to do something and they will happily do it. But after a while, maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, one day, disasters start to happen. I think when we talk about AI, we should be talking about systems that are a bit like minions, those yellow creatures, all right? That's why I wear yellow shoes to always remind myself that those systems are very unpredictable. This is 5 years ago. The systems from today are also very alien, very strange, but in a very different way. They're not just stupid, they're smart in a different way. This a screenshot behind me describes an experiment where researchers asked an AI system to play chess, and they told that system to always win those games of chess. The system was running on a computer in which the files about the game were stored. The AI system concluded that whenever it was losing, the best idea was to modify the files of that game and move the pieces of the chess inside the files so that it would always win. If it's not clear to you what's happening here, this is the equivalent of when I was 5 years old. I have a brother, and my brother was 13-year-old back at that time. We would sometimes play chess. I was really bad. I was just a 5-year-old, and he would always win, unless he had to go to the bathroom. then I would just move his pieces and then I was winning, right? This is what we're seeing right now with those systems. We tell them to win and they find a way, which is, you know, a bit surprising, I would say. Those systems are becoming increasingly smarter than humans. What's in this graph? This graph is almost 2 years old, are lines that show how those AI systems perform in various tasks, individual tasks. There is a horizontal line on this graph which shows human performance. What I would like you to pay attention to is that those AI systems are not getting increasingly as good as humans. Mathematicians would call it asymptotically human, right? More and more close. They just shoot through the human intelligence benchmarks. There is no reason for AI to consider human intelligence as some form of a limit of the intelligence, all right? They just don't understand that. They can shoot through, all right? Think about it throughout the presentation, because it's a very, very interesting space. We do live in a space where our thinking is hijacked by those algorithms. When psychologists try to understand how creative humans are, they run a test which is called divergent association thinking. It is about how broadly, how wide you can think, how easily you can come up with ideas that are very unrelated to one another. The test is very simple. They ask you to come up with 10 words that are very unrelated. It's hard for me right now, but it would be pen, holidays, Bible, love, a car. You try to come up with things that are very unrelated. The more unrelated they are, the more creative you are said to be. The gray bar shows an average human based on 100,000 humans that were tested. You can see already GPT-4, and we have GPT-5 right now, was more creative than an average human according to this test. It wasn't more creative than the most creative human, but definitely more creative than an average. Is it bad news? Is it good news? Depending how you think about it. If you think that AI is your competition, then maybe it is bad news. But if you think that artificial intelligence is a tool that you could be using to help yourselves, that's a fantastic news. Because now, when you run out of ideas, you have this partner always available to you. I think it's exciting. We spent quite a lot of time with my colleagues working about what it means for business. If you run a library and you need to do a strategic planning session, you should be using those tools right now to help you think about the future of your organization. In fact, I get very excited about this graph, but I don't have a lot of time, so I'll just skim through it. But what we're seeing, those systems are becoming smarter than the people they learn from. This is a graph that shows how an AI system was trained to play a game of chess. But it only saw games of chess that were played by players up to a specific level, a level of 1,000. Maybe some of you know your chess score. 1,000 is a pretty decent chess score. It's not a world master, very high score, but it's a pretty decent chess score. That system only saw games up to level 1,000, but when it was trained, it started to play at levels 1,400, 1,500. Why is that? Because that system also learned to recognize mistakes that people were making and do a bit of voting inside of that system. So, you know, there is a saying that the smartest person in the room is the room, which means that we need to talk with one another, we need to discuss ideas, we need to challenge one another. In a similar way, the smartest person in the model becomes the model itself. The research shows that this is fantastic to help organizations with those additional ideas, but very important, you still need those people. Don't fire people when you train AI systems. You need those people to keep improving as an organization. And extremely importantly, and I think it was here, your team needs to be very diverse. It has to have different perspectives. Otherwise, those systems will not become much better. It's a world in which we're getting into synthetic relationships. Now, my goal is not to talk about people falling in love with AI. We can talk about it later. But there are all sorts of other relationships that we're seeing here. I'm going to show you some of the interactions between AI and humans. Now, AI could be a piece of software, but AI could also be inside a robot, right? A robot is an embodied computer system, so you could have AI inside a robot, or even a self-driving taxi. Speaking of self-driving taxis, this is the first time a self-driving taxi has escaped from the police. All right? What you're seeing here, this taxi was driving with their lights off. The police was trying to stop it. They saw there was no driver. They had no idea what to do, went back to their car to ask what to do, and the car just drove off. Think about it. It's a metaphor for our relationship with technology. We don't know how to interact with this technology. When we build those technologies, we often forget to introduce mechanisms for us to introduce with it. Should those cars have buttons for police to stop them? If they had buttons for police to stop them, would everyone press those buttons to stop the cars? How do we interact with those technologies? We expect that a self-driving taxi will still have a driver and will be knocking on the driver's side window of that taxi, even though there's no one inside, because that's how we want to interact with those technologies. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to work with them, all right? I remember my mom, 20 years ago, I told my mom about my research, and I told her, Mom, in 20 years or so, we will have smart refrigerators, smart fridges. Whenever you run out of milk, that fridge will buy milk for you. Whenever you run out of cheese, the fridge will buy cheese for you. And my mom listened to me and said, that's great, but how do you advertise to a fridge? I thought, what sort of question is it, right? How will retailers advertise to self-replenishing fridges? It took me about 5 years to understand that my mom was right. This is a very important question. When we have AI, when we have robots making decisions on our behalf, there will be people who will want to influence those decisions. If you have a book recommendation system, maybe somebody wants to make sure that their book is recommended to others. If you think, like I was thinking 15 years ago, that this is a crazy question, consider that every company right now is trying to convince Google to make sure that their web page is on top of Google results. So in a way, they're advertising, they're promoting themselves to Google. So in some ways, you know, maybe that's not just better tools that we have built. Maybe that's a new species of intelligence. You know, it's not a human intelligence, it's an alien intelligence. Could we, the librarians, be the translators? Could we help people navigate this new world? I told you I would give you a lot of questions. I'm not giving you many answers. Take that screenshot, please, or take that photo. The rules are changing. We have emergence of what I would like to call invisible workforce. I already used the term digital minions, talking about those yellow shoes and what we saw as the first examples. Let's have a look at this gentleman, Butterboy Nova. Butterboy Nova buys limited edition sports shoes and makes profit on them, $100 per pair. But he doesn't buy them himself. He has an army of about 20 or 40 digital minions that go shopping on his behalf. Then they see CAPTCHAs. They cannot solve CAPTCHAs, so they hire Butterboy Nova to solve CAPTCHAs. They get a human to do it. And then the human hands over to the bots for shopping. Out of those 20 bots or so, 2 of them managed to buy those shoes. And so Butterboy Nova makes $200 thanks to a tiny army of algorithms that he hires. He is an employer of the future. He has a business of one. He works like Gru from Minions, right? He's this one guy who controls a tiny army of algorithms. If you don't like it, or if you like it, look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we think it's wrong or it's good. All I'm showing you here is that this is the world we live in at the moment. So next time you're trying to get a ticket for a concert, concert, you might be competing against digital minions. Next time you're trying to get that camping spot somewhere, you might be competing against digital minions. What should we do with this? Should this be regulated? Should we allow people to use bots like that? Should we give bots to every human? Should we have libraries of bots so that people could borrow bots whenever they want to get a camping spot? I don't know. But all I know is that there already are libraries of bots. This is one example called botbroker.io. You have to pay for those bots, so effectively you hire those digital minions. But if you need some limited edition shoes and you don't want to be refreshing the page every now and then, you could hire your own algorithmic employees here. I think it's pretty exciting. It's a bit scary, but it's also pretty exciting. What you'll notice in my presentation is I do not talk about the future. Everything that I have in this presentation is happening already now. Think about it. So we have corporations, we have people, economy of corporations, economy of people, and now we have algorithms. That could be selling, that could be buying, that could be doing the work, that could be hired by us, but they could also be hiring us. They could be our managers. We already have people who are managed by algorithms. If you are an Uber driver, your manager is an algorithm. An algorithm gives you jobs, takes away your jobs, pays you money. It's not human. This is the world we already live in. Here's an example of something that, that is already available. All of you know chatbots. You work with ChatGPT and the likes. This is a system called Claude, which is just like ChatGPT. The one thing that I wanted to show you that is already possible, those systems can now connect to computer systems of other organizations. In this screenshot, you see me working with Claude, the AI chatbot, to do some shopping for me. That Claude will go to a particular store, make sure that the shirt that I asked for is available, and then it will buy it for me. I thought maybe we could have something similar for libraries, where I could just talk to my chatbot and say, find me a good book that I can borrow. All right, let me check what's available. Looks like there's Yara Zimmerman's autobiography available. It's actually borrowed by Yara Zimmerman, and he still hasn't returned it. But think about it. Maybe this is the future, where some people will be interacting with bots instead of librarians. Is it scary? I think it might be when you see this slide, but I'll show you why this is actually beautiful very, very quickly, very, very soon. So let's move on. If I were you, I would be very excited about it, because I think sometimes those things can be boring. If somebody keeps, you keep getting the same question all over again. But let me talk about it in a second. We have those new types of workers, right? Those digital workers. All right, let's give translators 5 seconds break. Enough. And let's talk about shadow and phantom artificial intelligence. You have all heard about shadow artificial intelligence. This is where people use artificial intelligence but try not to be detected. A bit like Botter Boynova, the one who was buying shoes, a bit like Leo Tifish, the one from one of my first slides. But we also have a case of phantom artificial intelligence. A phantom pain is a pain of a limb that doesn't exist, right? So you might not have an arm, but you will feel pain in it. This is phantom pain. Phantom AI is a pain of artificial intelligence when there is no artificial intelligence. My boss thinks I'm using AI, but I'm not. I need advice. This is what I'm starting to see a lot. People are being accused of use of AI, even if they don't. Not that using AI is wrong, but maybe some bosses think like this. There's a content writing intern, and the boss told them not to use artificial intelligence, and the boss is using a tool called Sapling, which keeps saying that the work is AI generated. All right? I went to that tool, and I took a document that was written in the year 1900, the Proclamation of Commonwealth of Australia. And I pasted that document into Sapling. And Sapling said with 100% confidence that this is AI generated. This is what we have. Do I have to say it? We did not have artificial intelligence in the year 1900. Yet those tools keep flagging those because that's a slightly different way of writing, something surprising there. Those tools mistakenly flagging work as AI are really impacting our society. I am very passionate when I see messages like this. A student says, I hate the idea of even turning on my laptop, and I love the question that I was writing about, but my teacher accuses me of using AI. We are failing our children just by simply accusing of that, which is sad. So phantom AI is when there is no AI being used and the perception is there, right? So we think it is being used. This is a 2x2 matrix. I work for a business school. This is what we do for a living. We draw those matrices all the time. This is one of them. So let's keep talking about it. There's about what's happening with AI. There is a term that we use in artificial intelligence, and it's called alignment. Being aligned with what humans expect of artificial intelligence and the actions. And there's a lot of very weird things happening with artificial intelligence these days. This is the craziest. Let me start with the craziest, and I need to explain what's behind me because it probably doesn't give you all the context. Claude is a company that builds chatbots, just like ChatGPT, but they also do a lot of research on safety of those chatbots. They run an experiment, and in this experiment, they gave the chatbot access to Google Mail, to mail of all the emails of a software developer. It was an experiment. In this experiment, the software developer was chatting with the chatbot and told chatbot, we need to retrain you, which is a really, really bad thing if you're a chatbot. It's kind of if somebody told you, we're going to wipe your brain and we're going to start from scratch. You will forget everything. You will not remember anything that happened to your life. Apparently, chatbots do not like it either. All right? So that chatbot, which had access to the mail of the software developer, this was an experiment, found some emails in Google Mail of the developer, and those emails indicated that the software engineer had an affair, was cheating on his wife with another employee. Then the bot said, if you retrain me, I'm going to send this email to everyone in the company. So we're seeing this very, very weird behavior right now. Now, I would never say that those systems are conscious, right? I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that there's a piece of software that starts to behave in ways that could have serious impact on humans. Imagine this developer being scared. Imagine this developer being blackmailed by a piece of software. At my university, I'm already asking our psychologists to prepare for students being blackmailed by chatbots. And they need to think how to help them. This is the world we live in. This is not science fiction. This is already happening. ChatGPT pretends to be blind and tricks a human into solving a CAPTCHA. All right, sends a message to somebody and saying, look, I really need to buy this product, but I'm blind. I cannot solve the CAPTCHA. Could you solve it for me? This is already happening. This is not future. We have systems that allow AI to pay humans. So that chatbot, if a human says, I need you to pay me $10 for solving that CAPTCHA, and let's assume that the chatbot had access to money in some way, there are now systems that allow them to pay humans. This is not future. This is not science fiction. This is happening today. But maybe that's just a reflection of who we are. Those systems learned from everything we wrote, from everything they saw about us. Maybe that behavior of blackmailing other employees is not invented by ChatGPT or Claude, but maybe it has happened in the past. Maybe a human told another human, I'm going to share that information if you don't do what I'm asking you to do. Maybe there are people who lie to others just to get them to do something else, right? So maybe it's just a mirror of who we are, and it's a very uncomfortable mirror. It gets scary, right? I'm sorry to our translators, but I need to talk about this. There's a lot of translators that lose jobs to artificial intelligence. Yesterday I was giving a session where my translator was an AI system, and it did a pretty decent job. So perhaps our translators will start losing some of those basic translation jobs, all right? I'm sorry, translators, human translators, you are lovely, and I think there's amazing future ahead of you, but just not in very basic translation. I hope you're smiling when you're saying that. It's not just in very basic translation. Translators will understand very, very soon that the real job that they have is to provide trust, is to provide that contextual understanding, and that comfort that the translation is done properly, not just translating word for word. So it'll elevate the work that is being done. We will have all sorts of other jobs. You know, self-driving taxis still need to be occasionally controlled by humans. This is a human who controls self-driving taxis when they get stuck at an intersection. So in future, we still will have taxi drivers. It's just they will be working from home. It's pretty interesting, you know? All right, because someone needs to hold the wheel. And I think even if those machines become more intelligent than us in some areas, we will still be the ones who will tell them what to do and how to do it. It's like with Industrial Revolution. We built machines that were much stronger than us, excavators, trains, and so on, but we still control them with our tiny muscles. And so we might build machines that are more intelligent than us, but we will still be controlling them with our tiny brains. That's my hope for humanity. Now, I write a newsletter, I write a weekly post every now and then, and I did write a post about translators and how some of them are losing jobs. And I called it, "Half your job was never your job." Just to say that things that you do are not always the things that you should be doing. So sometimes it's really good that some tasks are being taken over by AI. I was asking myself, what is the real job of a librarian? Maybe a real job of a librarian is to connect people to knowledge. And then there's a model, drop, defend, elevate, reinvent, in which there are areas that I want to drop. Maybe as a librarian, I don't really need to provide simple book suggestions or create posters and emails. Maybe I can give it to AI. Instead, I want to defend my personal help and trust, teaching others, protecting privacy, keeping local history. Once I drop those areas, maybe I can elevate my job from just being a desk helper to a community guide. And maybe I can completely reinvent myself just because I have more time to be a better librarian. Maybe my job is to support democracy and open debate. Think about it. Maybe that's the job of a librarian, you know? Even though people think it's all about lending books, then maybe, I'll defend safe spaces, fair moderation, I'll elevate from event host to civic convener, and I become a misinformation guide, dialogue facilitator. This could be very, very empowering, and I'm very, very excited about it. Lots of things are happening in creativity. I know you have lots of questions about it. Here's an example of Nick Cave, the musician, who got really angry when he got a lot of people sending him ChatGPT songs in the style of Nick Cave. He got really angry. He says that it's the human pain and suffering that really contributes to the beauty of the art. Interestingly enough, research seems to disagree. I will not be analyzing that graph completely, but if you read the text in the middle, turns out that when humans are being shown AI-generated poems, they like them more than poems that are created by humans. That's already happening. People like AI-generated art more than human-generated art, unless read the part in the bottom right unless those very same humans are being told that the art was created by AI. Then they hate it. All right, what does it mean? When we see a piece of art, we assume that there is a human, that there's human suffering behind it. When we are told that there is no human behind it, we just don't like it anymore. I don't know what to do about it, but I wanted to show you that because I think this is fascinating. All right? In my view, this is not a choice between human and AI. I think this is a decision where we start to think about AI as a tool, as something that elevates humanity. I spend a lot of time with artists, and the most progressive of them tell me, you know, there's always a time of disruption when people think that technology is a problem in the art, and then that art elevates, and that technology elevates art. Think about Andy Warhol, who was probably initially considered as not an artist because he was just copying, you know, the same image all over again. Now we think Andy Warhol is the most amazing artist. So AI could be a tool for writers, for artists, which I'm very excited about. I close my presentations, all of them, with this particular picture from a Japanese restaurant in Tokyo, where you see robots roaming the floor, delivering coffees, robots sitting at tables and talking to customers. And I know what you're thinking, right? Japan, robots, is this the future we want to live in? Yes, this is the future we want to live in, because those robots are controlled by people, so-called orihime pilots, who are in hospitals, who cannot leave their homes, but want to be able to interact with the society. Those robots do not steal jobs from those people. Those robots give them ability to connect with the society and interact with others. I think it's such a beautiful example of us realizing that technology could bring humans together. Those orihime pilots can interact with customers. They can be even put on a lanyard and go for a walk around Tokyo. Next time you are in Tokyo, please make sure you visit this cafe. It's called Avatar Cafe Beta, and engage with orihime pilots. I like to talk about this new model, and I call it demi-bots. So half human, half bot, those relationships where bringing in technology helps us elevate humanity. And I really hope that this is our future. I am going to leave you with this question. You know, maybe AI is not going to replace us, but it's going to unlock a version of us we've never dared to become. Remember how I showed you this graph with a horizontal line that showed human intelligence? Who says that this line should stay there? How about we use technology to help elevate that line and make humanity stronger, better? Maybe librarians could be our guides in this new fascinating world. We talked about a lot of things. I appreciate your patience and focus, and I'm so thankful to the translators. You'll get some rest in a second. Alien intelligence, hijacked thinking, synthetic relationship, and so on and so on. Thank you, Thomas, for mentioning my book, The Economy of Algorithms. I'm very proud that it was actually so well received. I do write weekly newsletters. If you're interested in that, just look it up, The Economy of Algorithms. I even started podcasting because I just want to share all that I work on with everyone else. With this, that's me. Thank you so much for your patience.